Hello, my name is Marc-André Terrien, and I'm the manager of the Trevi store located in Laval. And it's me who will teach you how to operate and maintain your beautiful Trevi above-ground pool. Before I begin, I would like to point out or remind you that as a Trevi customer, you have access to several written documents that are located on our website. To find them, just go to the customer area on the Trevi website. There, you will have access to the digital documents located in the Trevi client area. You will also find information on the opening and closing procedures, as well as how to operate different equipment on your pool. This will help you operate and maintain your pool this summer. We also have a tutorial section on our website where there are several modules that cover many topics. These are some of the tools we provide to help you maintain your pool. Of course, you can always go to the store to see our clerks who are specialists in the maintenance and operation of above-ground pools, in-ground pools, and spas. I really hope that this video will help you maintain your above-ground pool. What I'm going to go over today is what I call the flow of water. We will follow the path of the water through your filtration system. That way, we will see all the different pieces of equipment that are on your pool and will see their operation and maintenance. Today, we will also see how to use the vacuum to clean your pool, and finally, we will talk briefly about the principles of water chemistry to make sure that the water is not only safe to swim in, but that it is also comfortable to swim in. To begin our journey through the flow of water, we will look at the first piece of equipment, the skimmer. The skimmer has two functions, and it is one of two main water intakes that will bring the water to your filtration if your system has a bottom drain. If your pool does not have a bottom drain, the skimmer is the one and only water intake that will bring the water to the filtration system. The second function of the skimmer is to skim the surface of the water. This is the first pre-filter for your pool. Inside the skimmer, you'll find the little skimmer basket. It's located inside the skimmer and must remain in the skimmer at all times. The only exception is when you take the basket out to remove leaves or any other debris that your basket will have collected. There is a second element in your skimmer. This is the skimmer door. It is located just at the mouth of the skimmer. It can be removed and put on easily. The function of the skimmer door is to increase the suction force so that it can do its job of skimming the surface of the water to make sure that as much debris as possible gets inside the skimmer basket. It is very important that it be there at all times, because if it's not there, if it's broken and not replaced, often the debris on the surface of the water will continually circle around and will not be sucked up by the skimmer and, unfortunately, end up in the bottom of your pool. The skimmer, as I told you, is one of the water intakes of your pool. This is the frame of the skimmer that will end up inside the pool. Many customers ask where they should keep the water level while the pool is in operation. It is always recommended to keep the water level between the second and third screw on the side of the skimmer. The water level should not be too low because the pump could draw air. And if the water level's too high above the skimmer opening, obviously the debris floating on the pool surface will not be sucked up by the skimmer. As I said before, the debris will then end up at the bottom of your pool. So now we're done with the skimmer. If we continue through the flow of water, you may have a pool that has a bottom drain. If so, we're going to find underneath the skimmer a three-way valve. The function of this valve is to direct the water, or in other words, to close and open water pipes. All three-way valves, regardless of the model that we've installed on your home, have the same basic principle. In fact, it doesn't matter if it's this one or the Hayward valve or the Pentair valve. The basic principle is that they all have an arrow. Here you will see, for example, on the Hayward valve there are 3 pins, one of which is raised. And here you see there's an arrow and an arrow. Where the arrow is going to point, it's going to turn off the water pipe. So if we take the 3-way Hayward valve here, right now my arrow is not pointing to any water inlet or outlet. So water can flow through any water pipe. For example, if I wanted to vacuum my pool and I wanted all the suction from the pump to be concentrated in the skimmer, I would have to close the bottom drain. Where should my arrow point? It should be pointing down. To turn the arrows, it's always the same principle. You have to loosen this little screw, lift the handle slightly, then you should be able to turn it. The basic principle of the 3-way valve that you have to remember, and that I keep repeating, where the arrow points, it turns off. If your pool doesn't have a bottom drain below the skimmer, you're not going to find a 3-way valve. What will be below the skimmer is a ball valve, more commonly known as a bulb valve. The principle of the ball valve is quite simple. When the handle is parallel to the valve, the water circulates. When it's perpendicular, the water is off. It will be used, as we will see a little later, to drain the pump basket or to clean the cartridge if we have a cartridge filter. So now we're done with the three-way valve or the ball valve. If we continue on the flow of water, we get to the pump, or the engine. The function of the pool pump is to circulate the water through the filtration system. A pump consists of two parts, the motor and also the part in front of the pump called the strainer. The strainer is made up of different elements. Obviously, there will be the pump cover that can be unscrewed, and inside it there is a pump basket. This is the second pre-filter of our filtration system. It might happen that some debris passes through the skimmer basket and ends up inside the pump basket. It's important to check fairly regularly that there is not too much debris that ends up inside the pump basket. If there is too much debris, it will have to be emptied. And that's what we're going to look at next. How to empty the pump basket depends on whether you have a cartridge filter or a sand filter. We will start by looking at how to empty the pump basket when we have a cartridge filter. As you can imagine, the first step will be to turn off the pump. There is a switch here that will allow us to turn the pump on or off. The next step, because obviously the pump is under the skimmer, so if I just turn the pump off and open the pump basket, what do you think will happen? The water will flood out and it'll be very difficult to put the pump basket back in and seal the lid. Before opening the cover, to be able to empty the pump basket, the water inlet must be turned off. Not only at the pump inlet, but also at the pump outlet. With a cartridge filter to close the pump inlet, if you have a bottom drain, the operation will be carried out with the three-way valve. As I explained earlier, the basic principle of the three-way valve, where the arrow points, turns the water off. I want to turn off the water line to the pump, so the arrow must point to this pipe here. But all three-way valves, no matter what system you have a protection system to make it difficult to block the water inlet to the filtration system. It's the same principle for all three-way valves. To shut off the line that goes to the pump inlet, you have to loosen the screw that's in the middle of the three-way valve, pull the handle, and then you will be able to turn off the water line that comes from the pump inlet. If your pool does not have a bottom drain, as I mentioned earlier, your pool will not have a three-way valve under the skimmer. Instead, there will be a ball valve. So if you want to shut the water off from the inlet of your pump, you're gonna have to turn the handle, putting it perpendicular, so the water will be cut off. It won't go to the inlet of the pump. We've just, whether we have a bottom drain or not, cut off the water that goes to the inlet of the pump. But as I was saying earlier, we also have to shut the water off which comes from the return water line. In other words, from the pool to the filter that goes to the pump. To turn off the water from the water return when we have a cartridge filter, there will be a second ball valve found on all pools with a cartridge filtration system. The second ball valve that is on the filter right here, we have to turn it off that way. Now the water will be off before and after the pump, which will allow us to unscrew the pump basket and empty it without flooding. This is how to empty a pump basket when you have a cartridge filter. Now, if we have a sand filter, there will be a slightly different step. First of all, to shut the water line from the pump inlet, whether we have a bottom drain or not, it will be the same operation. We will either place the three-way valve that points to the line that goes to the pump inlet, or if we have a ball valve, we will simply close it. The difference is that to close the line that goes to the pump outlet, pools that have a sand filter do not have a ball valve after the filter. We will block the water that goes to the pump outlet with the head of the filter. We have here the filter head. This is very important. When we handle the crank of the filter head, it is very important to turn off the pump. You must always turn off the pump before playing with the handle of the filter head. On the filter head, there are several positions. We'll examine each of them later on. If we want to block the water inlet, we have a position on our filter head called closed. So if I want to cut the water or prevent the water from returning to the pump, it's with the filter head that we do this. We just have to set the handle to closed. That way, the water will not return to the pump outlet and we can empty our pump basket. So that goes around the pump and drains the pump basket without flooding. If we continue on the flow of water, at the pump outlet, for the owners of a cartridge filter, we will find a three-way valve. Trevi puts a second three-way valve at the pump outlet if you have a bottom drain. Otherwise, it will be the first if you don't have a bottom drain. Why put a three-way valve at the pump outlet? To drain or lower the water level in the pool. And why would you want to lower the water level? There are a few different circumstances why you'd need to lower the water level. If there's been heavy rain and the water level is above the skimmer, it will be necessary to lower the water level a little. Or, when the pool is closed, the water level will have to be lowered below the skimmer. And another circumstance where you will have to manipulate the three-way valve at the pump outlet is when you want to vacuum the pool, but you want to let the water out of the pool. I'll explain later on the circumstances under which this will have to be done. If we look at the three-way valve, we remember the basic principle. Where the arrow points, it will shut off the pipe. Right now, the way the valve is placed, we understand that the water will come through here, but it will not be able to go to the street. It will instead continue to the filter and return to the pool. If I want to drain and send the water to the street, I will have to manipulate the three-way valve that is located at the exit of the pump. I don't want the water to go to my filter. I want it to go to the street. Remember that you have to slightly loosen the screw in the middle of the three-way valve. You will have to turn the handle for which it points to the line that goes to the filter. This way, when the water comes from the pump, it won't be able to go into the filtration system. It will rather go to the backwash hose that we will have rinsed to the street. There are two questions to ask yourself when it comes time to clean a filter, namely, when to clean it and how to clean it. The first question is, when should I clean my filter? It will be the same answer for cartridge or if I have a sand filter, and the pressure gauge will give us the answer. When we have a new pool or a new cartridge and it is still cleaned or our filter glass is cleaned, we must note the pressure indicated by the pressure gauge. For example, I'm a new owner of a beautiful Trevi pool and I'm looking at my filtration system for the first time. My pressure could say 10 psi. Now, there's no normal pressure. The pressure inside the manometer will depend on several factors: the length of the pipes and the strength of the pump. Several factors will cause the pressure to vary from one pool to another. The important thing is that you know the pressure for your pool when the filter medium, either the cartridge or the filter glass, is clean. If we take a sand system as an example, when I look at my filtration system, my pressure is at 10 psi. Because of the accumulation of debris inside the filter, the pressure will rise. It's said that when the pressure increases between 7 and 10 psi, more than when my filter or sand cartridge is clean, it's time to clean my filter medium, either the cartridge or the filtration sand. So if my natural pressure for my pool is at 10, when the pressure will be at 17, 18, 19, or 20 pounds, this is the indicator that will tell us it's time to clean out the filter. So that's when to clean your filter. Let's move on to the second question. How do you clean your filter? The answer will still depend on whether you have a sand or a cartridge filter. Let's start with the sand filter. Before proceeding with the filter head, it's important to install the backwash hose that was supplied with your pool. One very important thing before installing the backwash hose, before attaching it to your filter head, Trevi strongly recommends that you completely unroll the backwash hose and run water from your garden hose inside the backwash hose so that it opens up more easily before installing it on the filter head. It is very important to do this because often during installation, if the hose has not been prepared, with the force of the water, the hose will burst. To minimize the risk of bursting the backwash hose, at the first use, we will unroll it, circulate water inside it cleanly. This will separate the walls of the backwash hose so the risk of bursting is minimized. When our installation is finished and the pipe unrolled to the street if necessary, we will have to handle the filter head. The cleaning of a sand filter will consist of two steps. Normally, the filter head will be in the filtration position. This way, the water will pass through the filter from the top to the bottom and back to the pool. As it passes from the top to the bottom, the debris will be captured by the filter glass inside the filter. When you want to clean the filter, what you want to do is to make the water go backwards. We want it to go from the bottom up to get the debris out of the filter and flush it to the street through the backwash hose. The two steps I was telling you about. First of all, remember that every time I handle the handle on the filter head, I have to turn off the pump. You put the handle on the backwash position. I turn the pump back on for 2 minutes, and then we turn the pump off. The second step to properly clean our filtration system, I put the filter head in the rinse position for about 1 minute. After 1 minute, we turn off the pump and put the backwash handle back to filtration to reset it. To summarize, to clean the filtration sand, it's 2 steps. We put the filter head 2 minutes to backwash, 1 minute to rinse, and finally back to filtration. That's how to clean a sand filter. To clean a cartridge filter, the first operation is to turn off the pump. Once the pump is off, the filter is below the water level. So if I remove my cartridge to clean it, I will have to close the water inlet before and after the filter in the same way as when I clean the pump basket. Otherwise, it will be impossible to unscrew the cartridge filter to take the cartridge out for cleaning. It will be the same operation as for the pump. To close the inlet to the filter, once again I will use the three-way valve or ball valve that is located under the skimmer to close the inlet to the filter. Remember, you have to loosen the screw in the middle of the valve to be able to pull on the handle and make the arrow point to the line that goes to the inlet of the filter. For the line that goes to the filter outlet, use the ball valve at the filter outlet, which must be closed. After closing the inlet and the outlet of the filter, before accessing the cartridge, the air valve on the top of the filter must be opened. You will hear the sound of air coming out. When the air pressure is completely out, we must drain the water out of the filter before unscrewing the ring that holds the two parts of the filter together. To drain the filter, simply unscrew the drain plug at the bottom. Once the drain plug has been emptied, you can unscrew the ring. When the two parts of the filter are separated, you will have to access the cartridge, which you can remove and clean. As you can see, a cartridge is made up of strips of fabric which trap the debris. We're gonna have to remove all the debris. We can simply take the garden hose and by moving it from top to bottom, clean and remove all the debris. There's also a tool sold in all Trevi stores that is added to the garden hose and will concentrate the water pressure to go deep inside each of the strips. Over time, the fabric will accumulate oils, fats, and algae. It's important to soak it in a cleaning solution once or twice a season if necessary. There are different cleaning solutions depending on the Trevi location, so I invite you to go to the branch and ask a clerk for information on the recommended method for soaking the cartridge. Once the cartridge has been cleaned, we work our way backwards. We'll put it back inside the filter, tighten the drain plug, then put on the upper part and screw the ring back on. Reopen the valves. Once that's done, we restart the pump. But there's one thing we don't do. We won't close the air valve immediately. We're gonna wait for the water to rise in the filter. And when the water comes out the air valve, that's when we close it. Now we'll continue on the water path. After the filter, there's the water heater. There are several types of water heaters. The most popular by far is the heat pump. There are also gas, natural propane, and electric water heaters. Whichever water heater you choose, the principle is pretty much the same, much like a thermostat in your home. You choose the desired temperature, the temperature will rise, for example to 80 degrees. And when the water temperature is reached, the heat pump or gas water heater will stop. When the temperature goes back down, the water heater will start up again on its own to bring the water temperature back up to the requested temperature. A note on the heat pump. We must not forget that it works through the principle of heat exchange. It is therefore normal if it's cold outside or if the nights are cold that the heat pump will have more difficulty heating the water. This is normal. It will only take longer. Conversely, a gas water heater is a flame, so no matter how cold it is, like an electric water heater, it will heat up regularly. It is a heating element, so the outside temperature has no effect on the performance of the water heater. For the heat pump, we suggest, especially if the pool is at home and you want to start using it regularly, to start the water heater in May when the swimming season starts and turn it off at the end of September or early October when the swimming season ends. Other than that, you forget about it. Heat pumps are equipped with flow sensors. Even if I shut down my filtration system, the heat pump will stop, and when I turn it on again, it will start again on its own. To find out how your water heater works in particular, since there are several models available at Trevi, I invite you to consult the user manual, but it's quite simple. You choose the desired temperature, and the water heater heats the pool. After the water heaters, you will find, for those of you who have purchased them, the sanitation system. At Trevi, we have two, either the salt system or the ozone system. Let's start with the salt system. I suggest that you read your user manual carefully, because there are a number of things that will not be covered in this video that are very important. So I strongly encourage you to read it. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that I think are important. How to add salt to the pool, and how the chlorine production in your system works with salt. A salt system, for those of you that don't know, is a small home chlorine plant. A certain amount of salt will be put into the water, and then through electrolysis, the system will convert the salt molecule into chlorine. And this transformation will take place in the cell that's in your filtration system. In order for a salt system to produce chlorine optimally, a certain amount of salt must be put in. The salt systems sold at Trevi are called low salt systems, which are ideal for use with 1,500 to 2,000 parts per million of salt in the pool. The salt system will produce chlorine as low as 700 parts per million and up to 3,700 parts per million, but we try to keep it between 1,500 and 2,000. If you put a little bit too much salt and you go over 2,000, that's okay. With the rain, the salt will eventually dilute and the salt will return to the ideal level for your salt system. Let me explain how to add salt to your pool. First of all, salt bags are sold in a 20 kilogram bag. To know how much salt you need to add to reach between 1,500 and 2,000 ppm, I invite you to bring a small bottle of water and come to the store and have your water tested. You will have the exact information on the amount of salt to add. To give you an idea, a pool with 40,000 liters of water, a bag of salt will increase the salt concentration in your pool between 300 and 400 ppm. That being said, the first thing to do when adding salt to your pool will be to turn off the salt system. It's absolutely necessary to prevent too high a salt concentration from passing through the cell while it is producing chlorine. This could damage or even break the control panel of your salt system. Step 1. When you want to add salt to your pool, you shut down the salt system first. Once the system is shut down, you will be able to pour the necessary amount of salt. If the salt does not dissolve immediately, don't worry, it will not damage the pool liner. You can use the brush with the telescopic handle to break up the larger pieces of salt that have remained intact at the bottom of your pool. When the amount of salt is sufficient, you must wait 12 hours before restarting the salt system. And another important point, when you turn the system back on, the salt level displayed in the digital screen will not be real. You will have to wait another 12 hours before the system displays the new salt level reading. So to put or add salt in my pool, I repeat, I turn off my system, I put the salt in, I wait 12 hours. I turn it on, I wait another 12 hours before I get the new salt reading, and I adjust if necessary by repeating all the steps. I wanted to discuss two important points with you about the use and operation of your salt system. The second point deals with a subject that is often very misunderstood. It is the amount of chlorine that the salt system will produce. The system will give you a reading of your water. It will give you the amount of salt that's in your pool. But the salt system, it is very important to understand, will not test the chlorine level in your pool water. This operation remains your responsibility, either with drops or strips. Considering that the salt system does not test the chlorine level, it will be up to you to tell it the amount of chlorine it must produce to obtain a level of 2 to 3 parts per million of chlorine in the pool. And to tell the system how much chlorine it must produce, we'll do this with the desired output, the little wheel in the center of your control panel. You have to think of the wheel as a timer. If it indicates 50%, that means that 50% of the time the machine is producing chlorine, and 50% of the time the machine is not producing chlorine. This is regardless of whether the chlorine level is at 1 ppm, 15, 20, or 30. The machine will not take this into account, even though the chlorine level could be 10, 20, or 30 times higher than it should be in order to have an acceptable level. The system will still make it. As the owner of a salt system, you must take 30 seconds twice per week to test your chlorine level. And the beauty of a salt system is that if your pool is running low on chlorine, you can increase production slightly. And if you have too much chlorine, you can lower the desired output so that the machine produces less chlorine. It is very important to do this once or twice a week. Otherwise, you risk premature wear and damage to your pool equipment. The last point I would like to discuss with you regarding the operation of the salt system is the cleaning of the cell. As I said earlier, the salt will turn to chlorine inside the cell. As a result of this operation, scale will stick to the platelets inside the cell. The accumulation of scale will interfere with the proper functioning of the cell, which is why it must be removed. And how do you remove it? You will need to soak the cell in an acid solution. The types of cleaners may be different depending on the branch you go to, but it's always the same principle. The cell must be removed from the filtration system, screwed onto a dipping base, and then pour the cleaning solution inside the cell. Leave it to soak for about 20 minutes, rinse, and reinstall it. In this way, we will remove the scale that will have formed on the platelets, and it will increase the productivity of the cell and its lifespan. This is a good thing because a cell is quite expensive. The second sanitation system sold by Trevi is the ozonator, or ozone system. The ozone system is fairly simple to operate. In fact, there's nothing special to do. All you have to do is take the system and plug it into the electrical outlet. That's it, nothing more. The ozone will be manufactured in the casing and injected in the pool by the injector that's on your pool's filtration line. The ozone that will be manufactured is a powerful sanitizer, but it is not enough to ensure that the pool water is completely disinfected to ensure that it's safe for swimming at all times. That's why at Trevi, whenever an ozone system is sold, we will also accompany it with a chlorinator. A chlorinator is a tool that will allow us to put chlorine tablets, and I insist it must be only chlorine tablets. We must never put granular chlorine in a chlorinator. It could explode. By adding chlorine tablets, we will ensure that our water is properly disinfected at all times. Someone without an ozone system would have to maintain a chlorine level between 2 or 3 parts per million at all times. Since the ozonator does much of the work of sanitizing the pool water, owners of an ozone system can settle for a chlorine level between 0.5 and 1 parts per million. And this way, the water will remain crystal clear and we will make sure that all microorganisms are destroyed. To add tablets to the chlorinator, the principle is quite simple. I have to turn off the pump, unscrew the cover of the chlorinator, and add 1 or 2 chlorine tablets. All chlorinators are equipped with a dial that will allow you to put more or less flow inside to melt the tablets and inject the chlorine into the pool as needed. To preserve the chlorinator, resist the temptation of filling the chlorinator with tablets and setting the dial at the minimum, and hope to open it only every 3 weeks. For it to work well, put in a few pellets and a lot of flow, and open it twice a week. Trevi recommends 1 or 2 pellets at a time and never lower the dial to less than 3/4 or 1/2 of its full potential. After the sanitation system, the water returns to the pool, and it returns via the water jet. The function of the jet is to redirect the water back into the pool. To ensure good circulation, we want the water to turn. The water return has an eye, which we can move. What we want is to place the eye of the return at 45 degrees down, and the water must go in the opposite direction of the skimmer. If we take this pool as an example, the water has to flow in the opposite direction to the skimmer. Now, we will take a few minutes to talk about the chemistry of the water. This is to make sure that the water is safe for swimming and the pool equipment at the same time. To have clear water, there are 3 aspects to consider. It is the sand in the filter or the cartridge that collects the suspended particles. It's also necessary to have good circulation. It's the pump that takes care of the water circulation. And finally, good water chemistry. When I talk about water chemistry, I always separate the subject into 2 parts: the safety part when swimming and for the equipment, and the comfort part when swimming. The safe swimming part contains 2 important factors to check and adjust. There is the chlorine level and the pH, the acidity level. In a swimming pool, the level to be reached is between 1 and 3 ppm of chlorine at all times in the pool to ensure good water sanitation. Unless our system is ozone, then the ozonator will already do a good part of the sanitation, so you can afford to keep your chlorine between 0.5 and 1 ppm. The second factor to check regularly is the pH of the water. pH is important for several reasons, including a direct cause and effect relationship between the effectiveness of chlorine and pH. The higher the pH, the less effective the chlorine will be. pH should always be kept between 7.4 and 7.6. Why keep it between these 2 values? To make sure the chlorine is effective, but also because the pH in your eyes is 7.5. This will prevent the sensation of burning eyes. To make the water comfortable to swim in and safe for your equipment, there are 2 other parameters to control: alkalinity and calcium levels. What is alkalinity? It's baking soda. Baking soda is added to the pool to stabilize the pH. It's important to do this once or twice a season to make sure the alkalinity is between 100 and 120 parts per million at all times. The last important parameter to adjust is the calcium level. Why is calcium added to pool water? It's to remove the corrosive power of the water. Because if the water is too low in calcium, it will tend to be corrosive and will wear out the pool equipment prematurely. I repeat, to make the water safe for you and your pool, and to make the water pleasant to swim in, we have 4 factors to check: the chlorine level, the pH, the alkalinity, and the calcium. You can learn how to adjust and test your water yourself with the help of test strips that will give you the results, or with the help of drops. It's not very complicated. Or you can go to your local Trevi location. There are clerks who will show you how to do it. But an even simpler way is to bring in water samples to the water test counter. That way, not only will you get the test results of the parameters that are in your pool water, but we'll leave you with the recipe to apply at home. For example, we'll tell you to add 3.5 kilograms of alkalinity, wait 4 hours, add 700 grams of pH minus, wait 6 hours, etc. I invite you to come check once a month to the store to have your water tested. For the chlorine and pH level, you can learn how to test the water yourself at home. There are tutorial videos on our website that show you how to test your water. To conclude this video, I would like to show you how to vacuum your pool with the vacuum head. Inevitably, there will be debris that ends up in the bottom of your pool. And just like you do at home when you have debris lying around, you have to vacuum it up. To vacuum a pool, you need 4 pieces of equipment that are provided with the purchase of your pool at Trevi: the telescopic handle, the vacuum hose, the vacuum head, and the vacuum plate. The first step is to connect all the equipment together. We take the telescopic handle and install it on the vacuum head. Continue with the vacuum hose that is attached to the vacuum head, paying attention to the fact that the hose has 2 different ends, one that turns and one that does not. It is the spinning one that we will come to attach to the vacuum head. Finally, the plate is installed on the remaining end of the vacuum hose. Once all the equipment is assembled, we will put it in the pool water. Only the nozzle with the plate will be kept fixed inside the skimmer over the skimmer basket. But before installing the vacuum hose on the skimmer basket, you must fill it with water. How do I do that? You place the nozzle over the return water inside the pool. The air will drain out of the vacuum hose, then we can connect it to the skimmer basket, and then we can vacuum it up. Finally, it is possible that in the spring, at the time of the first cleaning, or in the summer, if a lot of algae forms on the pool walls, that we not only have to vacuum the pool, but also drain the water directly to the street. Because if you have a lot of debris, it's always better to not let it pass through the filtration system. Instead, take it directly from the bottom of the pool and flush it out of your system. To do this, you will have to switch the vacuum to drain mode, or as the term is commonly used, waste mode. How to do this depends on the type of filter you have. For a cartridge filter, at the pump outlet, there is a 3-way valve. So we install the vacuum hose as explained earlier and we turn off the pump. We don't want the water to travel into the filtration system, but rather to the street through the backwash hose. Then, we're going to manipulate the 3-way valve. I want to close the filter pipe, so I loosen the screw and I turn the arrow so that it points towards the filtration system. That way, the debris will go from the bottom of the pool to the street without going through the filtration system. For a sand filtration system, to drain the water directly from the pool to the street without going through the filtration system, you will have to use the filter head. Before touching the filter handle, you must turn off the pump. Install the vacuum and switch to the drain position. This way, the water leaves the pool, stays in the filter head, does not pass through the sand, but goes directly to the street. In short, when your pool has a lot of debris to remove, no matter what filtration system you use, it's always better to drain it directly to the street. Last point, when you vacuum your pool, you want all the power of the pump to be concentrated in the skimmer. For those who have a bottom drain, you won't be able to vacuum the pool if you don't shut off your bottom drain. You must absolutely close the bottom drain. That way, all the power of the pump is concentrated at the skimmer, which will make things easier. If you don't have a bottom drain, it doesn't apply. You install the vacuum just as explained earlier, and it will work. Thank you for listening to this video. If you have any further questions, I invite you to visit your local Trevi location, where many professionals are available to help you.